Our next award recipient of the Distinguished Community Engagement Award is Dr. Emma Rose, also from the School of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences. And you might also notice that these three scholars are from a clearly really productive and dynamic unit in the School of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Emma Rose's talk title is Community Engaged Pedagogy, Stories, Patterns, Possibilities. I do want to say also that Emma's bio is the shortest of anybody's, so it's not going to be quite as thorough of an introduction, and I wondered if that has something to do with her skill and expertise in recognizing that maybe we can't imbibe and retain a lot of information that we see online. I don't know, but I can tell you what I was able to find on Dr. Emma Rose's website, which is that Dr. Rose is a technical communication scholar whose research and teaching is motivated by a commitment to social justice and designing for inclusion. She uses participatory design and research techniques to help conceptualize solutions for community-based problems. She teaches user experience, UX research, user-centered design, and technical writing. Previously, she spent a decade working in user experience. Dr. Rose is an associate professor in the School of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences with an adjunct appointment in human-centered design and engineering at UW-Seattle. I also want to flag the fact that developing methods is a really key part of Dr. Rose's approach and agenda to engage communities and vulnerable populations in the design process. Dr. Emma Rose.
Thank you so much. What an honor. What an honor it is to be here and to be in community with these brilliant scholars. And when I look around the room, I see so many of our colleagues who have inspired us in this work. And so it just feels really, really precious to be part of this experience. So thank you so much. So I'm going to start with a story. So do you remember winter of 2022? We were in the pandemic, we thought we were getting out, but it was the Omicron wave. And I remember sitting at my desk at my home office being like, oh my gosh, how much longer are we going to have to do this? We had emergency went online again, and we were kind of easing back to in-person. I was exhausted, and I think a lot of us were exhausted at that moment in time. And I almost remember the ding in my email when this email comes into my inbox, and it says, hey, Emma, we haven't met, but I would love to talk to you. And that email was from Julie Anderson, who is the auditor of Pierce County, an elected official. She was also running for Secretary of State for the state of Washington. And she said, and this is another connection, today is all about connections. She was like, I got your name from somebody at the city of Tacoma, which was because of Livable City Year. So she had reached out to me because someone said, Emma's the one you should talk to. So the problem she was coming with was acknowledging that the auditor's office runs elections for Pierce County. So if you've ever voted in Pierce County, you have used their information. And Julie knew that they had some brilliant people working on their information for voters, but she also knew that there could be some improvements. And she was like, I heard you're the one to talk to. And I was like, great, let's talk. So as they're responsible for all kinds of voting, they've got all kinds of information that help people vote. And we were talking and brainstorming, and I thought, I've got this class. I've got this really fun class called Usability Testing and Research, and we always work with community partners. And I was like, I think this is a perfect opportunity for this project, my class. It seems a great coming back together, and we were coming back in person. And so she came to my class and wowed my students. They had somebody who was running for elected office there talking to them about this problem. And while she was talking to them, I could almost see it in their eyes. I had 3 students in that class who just lit up with this topic. And she left, and they came up to me, and they're like, that's the project I want to work on. So this project kind of re-energized all of us, and I want to talk about it in context of my larger approach to community-based pedagogy. So I'll come back to that specific story, but for now, just to zoom out, Vanessa, thank you for sharing these objectives with me recently. Community engaged learning objectives, what we hope when we're having community engaged projects with our students is that they're learning these things along the way. Things like civic identity, cultural humility, perspective taking, systems awareness, and integrative learning. It's a lot, feels like a lot to bake into one little class, but I think we can do it. I have been working with two of my colleagues at two other institutions to create models for thinking about how we do this. Because I can say community engaged pedagogy, and I bet you all have a different idea of what that means. And so working with people in other institutions has allowed us to be like, oh, you do it that way, I do it this way. All pedagogy is local. All of it is contextual, right? We are informed by this place, we're informed by the city that we live in. So these models came out of some really productive conversations with Dr. So-Yun Lee and Dr. Heather Noel Turner. So the theory that we use is emergent theory from Anne Marie Brown. And I wanna start with this quote that I feel like has been driving me in a lot of community engaged work lately, which is, there's a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have, find it. Like her point is, the collection of people and networks coming together, you might not always know what the problem is going to be or how to solve it, but the expertise in the room, that is the group of people who are gonna help you find it. So I set out to do that in my classes, is to find that conversation that we could have in community and with community and bring the students into that conversation as equal participants in the process. So typically, maybe not typically, but oftentimes when we think of community engaged pedagogy, we think, okay, you've got a partner and you've got a class. And that's maybe a simple way to think about it. So we wanted to complicate it by looking at the models, creating models out of what we do in our classes. So this first one is from Dr. Turner, and she calls hers one-to-many. So this is the idea that you have a partner and you have a class, and then within that class you have multiple groups of students working on different kinds of projects for that partner. So her example, which is detailed in our paper, is talking about working with the Innocence Project in California. And it was with that one client, and then the different groups worked on things like search engine optimization, content strategy, working on instructions and design and things like that. So everyone's kind of focused on the same mission, but they're allowing them to build out different skill sets in their teams. So that's one model. So now my model, which we call many-to-many. And so this is how I typically run community engaged courses, and a number of my courses are, where I have multiple partners and multiple groups, and I'm the conduit to these different groups, but I'm also sort of my role is sort of like project manager, coach, facilitator, helping to manage these different relationships. So, and what stays constant is that we're learning about one method or one topic and we're applying it in all these different places. So in my usability testing and research class that I mentioned, this is what we do. We're almost like a little consulting group, right? We've got all these little clients and we work together to work on these projects. So going deeper into that project in particular, so the partner here was the Pierce County Auditor's Office, and there was multiple stakeholders that we were working with, and then I was the instructor, and then I had my 3 lit up students who were excited to work on this project. They were excited to work on this because, for a variety of reasons, but a lot of it was because of their life experience, their identity, the lens that they were bringing with them into the classroom was based on a lived experience where voting meant a lot. And I also think it was in a time, and continues to be in a time, where our democracy feels really, really fragile. So just like the Barnacle example, when we see systems that aren't under strain and we're starting to feel sad about those things, the best thing that we can do is get involved, right? And look for those resilient systems and look at the ways that we can help with these systems. So the students conducted usability studies, they recruited participants. Pierce County specifically wanted to look at people new to Washington and young voters, so it was a perfect kind of match, I think, for our UW students. And they were specifically interested in people new to Washington because vote by mail is not available in every state, and so they wanted to see if the information they were conveying about vote by mail was trustworthy, right, was understandable, and that people could figure out where their ballot boxes were and things like that. So the students ran the studies. They did this just a very, very wonderful job. They found all kinds of things to improve. They found a lot of things that were working, but they found a bunch of things to improve as well. And this is them presenting. You can tell by how many masks are in the room, I think of what time of the pandemic it was. And this is them presenting their work. And in the audience is Julie and her team listening to the work. So they presented it. It's a research study, right? And they come out to present it. And then they make the rhetorical argument that kind of everybody in the room kind of stopped to think about it. And the argument that they made is that they went back to an article we had read the previous quarter about literacy tests in the South during 1890s to 1965. This is a really wonderful article that looks at the different materials that people had to contend with when they were trying to register to vote in the South, and how even though on the surface they look neutral, they're intentionally designed to disenfranchise voters. And the students sitting there with this, the county elected officials were saying this is our history. And of course, our wonderful elected officials know this, but they were just blown away by our students. And when we talk about usability testing, it's often fix a link, change a heading. It feels really mundane, but the point they wanted to make in this very emotional way is that these mundane details matter. And so they did a lovely job of connecting their past work to this project specifically. It was also at the end of that presentation, they scurried out of the room and the client went out with them, and they were all in the hallway just lit up and just talking about it and what they learned. And the very next day, the client emailed me and said, we've already made all the changes they suggested. They were like, these are great. And they said, we want to work with them some more. Can we work with them some more? And that's what we all want, right? We want those relationships to exist over time and over space. So one of the students graduated, and yay for them, but two of them wanted to keep working on this project. Julie moved on as well, and so she moved on, but we had the original stakeholders there as well. Those two students did an independent study. They did another study to look at visual design, and they also did a comparative analysis where they looked at a bunch of other voting websites to see how it could be improved. So I come back to this as a model, and I feel like when I step back, this was a particularly successful experience, but I feel like I have 5 of these a year, right? Where you see students, you see community, you see them coming together. It's not always easy. It definitely, as we all know, takes time, but it is so worthwhile. So did we hit those learning objectives? I would say that we did. We obviously went into civic identity, cultural humility, perspective taking, systems awareness, and integrative learning. The one other model I want to leave you with, because I really love it, is So-Yoon Lee, who is from the University of Texas, El Paso. And her model is called one to plural. And yes, there's still one class, or one partner and one class. Then there's different groups of students working on different projects. But then instead of sort of in isolation, the beautiful point she makes in this paper is that students are already in communities. It's not like we're introducing them to community when they come to college, right? And so her model has them look at an issue. In this case, they were building a makerspace on campus, and she wanted the different groups of students to go to their communities and say, what do you want? What would serve you? And so thinking instead of, as the way that Allison mentioned it, as an extractive model, instead it's saying we're already in community, you are already in community and empowered to be the representative and engage your community and back into campus and the classroom. So I love that model as well. I want to leave you with a quote, again from Anne-Marie Brown, because she's so very inspiring. And I just want to leave this because I feel this as we are here today in community. We can do, be, and create whatever we want to see, knowing ours is one effort in the midst of many, and the multitude is where our power lies. Thank you. Oh, can I just say one more thing? This just happened and I'm super excited. So these are the students who worked on the project at the bottom, and the first student there just got hired for the Center for Civic Design, which is a national think tank on how to improve voting across the country. And he got hired because of this project. So anyway, okay, again, and thank you so much.